Take massive action. Do something different. Hey, how come you have so many team leaders in your downline? Because if you look at my book, I freaking call team leader after team leader after team leader after team leader, right? How do you have so much real estate business? Because I pick up the damn phone and I call and I call and I call and I call. If people come into my office, I have an office where I let people come in for free. It's me every day that I'm in town. And then every once in a while, somebody pops in. I've got 30 people in this area. It's not a secret. Like, take massive action.
This is Frank Crandall, and we have a special guest today. Russell is a business partner of mine, but more importantly, he's become a really good friend in the last year. And I've just really looked up to this young kid because everything he touches turns to gold. And I've looked at his progression, and I just had to have him on the Zoom call today and the podcast. And then, Russell, you're going to be able to get a link Chris is going to send you. You can share it out to your group. You can share it out to your YouTube page, share it out to all social media. But I think I just want to get started. And Russell, I just want you to give me a 5-minute brief background on your biography and how we got to here. And let's go.
No, sure. I can do that one. So I grew up relatively broke, as you know, Frank, with the McElroys and the Gostages and all those folks, right? Everybody came from a little town called Orangevale, and nobody had 2 nickels to rub together. And, when you come from lower middle income, you don't have anybody that's a financial mentor, and so I did, I think, what everybody else at least makes the mistake to do. And I went to college. When I went to college, my grandfather, before he passed away, told me to go work at a title company because it's important to, understand real estate. So I worked at a title company in college. I also worked at a foreclosure research firm in college, undergrad. Then I did flips for a couple of years, and I decided, you know what? All of the really smart people I see are getting graduate degrees. So I applied to 4 beach colleges, and Florida Atlantic University is the one that gave me the best scholarship offer. So I ran off to there, finished my grad degree in economics, did a couple of really cool financial models. I stayed on the East Coast because of a girl. I had actually sold my model to Tokyo, New York, but instead I became an equity trader on the East Coast. Kind of like if you remember Dan Aykroyd and Eddie Murphy in Trading Places.
Yes, one of my favorite Christmas movies.
It's a great Christmas movie. So I had 5 assistants screaming at me all the time, and we were doing trades out there, and it was a very lucrative thing. And then, the very next step for somebody who thinks they're going to get rich, at least for a kid, is, you want to go open a business, and all you think of is retail. In hindsight, I should have done manufacturing or something wholesale, but I didn't know any better. You go to the store and buy stuff. You think those are the rich folks. So I opened a whole bunch of cell phone stores, a coffee shop, lost all of the money and then some that I had made on the East Coast trading stocks. I went to work in the corporate world. I got a job at Best Buy from my cell phone experience, owning all those cell phones. Went from Best Buy, got recruited to Target. From Target, got recruited to Samsung. I did have a short little stint with a startup in between there. I was the vice president of sales. At Samsung, I worked myself all the way up as high as I wanted to go. I was one of 5 guys in the United States. Got fired in January of 2019, and I was doing flips the whole time. My mom had retired from real estate because she was selling my flips back in like 2012, and I paid somebody to sell my flips for 2 years, and I got my license. This was all kind of going on at the same time. When I got fired in 2019, I got a message from a guy named Scott Ostrode. Some of you might know him. He was the team leader at KW in Roseville, and when I met him, he was up in the El Dorado Hills office saying, "Hey, you're a pretty sucky agent. You should come work for me and make more money." And I was in the middle of the interview process with Walmart and Assurion, and I was going to get a better job than I had at Samsung pay-wise, not quite as prestigious. And when I told my wife, I said, we got some, money in the bank, and I got nothing else to do today. I've cleaned the house like 19 times since I've been on, off work. I'm going to go talk to this guy. And this guy was talking like he made more money than me, Frank. And he was number 542. So 541 people made more money than him. I love Scott. If any of you know Scott, he's an amazing guy. And at the end of the conversation, I hope he doesn't mind I'm sharing, especially on a public podcast, but I said, "Can I ask you a personal question? Because my family has gotten really used to spending a nice corporate salary, and I have a lot of mouths to feed." He's like, "Sure." So what'd you make last year in 2018? He said, "Yeah, no problem. I made 1.4. And I said, "No offense, you mean million?" He's like, "Yeah, unlimited, earning potential in real estate if you actually treat it like a business." So I came home and told my wife, we are quitting the corporate world. We're going to go into real estate. And then I in real estate, spent my first about 11 months at Keller Williams and switched to EXP. I had a little stint there where I was going to open my own brokerage, Frank, but my brother-in-law sold E&O insurance and he said, don't you dare. I see the craziest things out there with brokers and how much liability that they have. And so I, Frank, interviewed everyone before I got into real estate. I read every book I could. I couldn't fail, right? I was, like I said, my family had gotten used to spending a big corporate salary. At least that's what I thought it was. And real estate's been an absolute blessing. So the last 5 years, I've earned more money than I've ever earned in my life. And I appreciate the young man comment. It was funny. My dad plays golf and he's in his late 70s. And my uncle's in, Uncle Ron, he's in his early 80s. And my Uncle Ron still swings it pretty good. And these two guys came up behind us and he's like, and they watched my uncle swing, who's 82. And the guy's like, oh, to be young. And so I guess, and he was in his 90s. So I guess it's all relative.
It is all relative. Well, Russell, thank you. Great story. Love that. So, which leads us here today. The reason that I'm having you on this podcast, I wanted to give your insights on the Maui trip that you just got back from. And I was so jealous I couldn't make it. I had things going on in here, but I'm just going to turn it over to you. And we have the availability to share our screen. So, Russell, it's all you.
Yeah, what I would say is anybody that's on the podcast, and again, I don't know who your audience is, but if it's EXP folks, don't miss the events if you can go. Frank, I know I've seen you at most of them. Every single time I think about not going, and I always make them if I can. When you get there, you're like, my goodness, the return on investment is insane. And this one was by far the smallest one I've ever been to. I would say the second day when I counted people, I counted 54, right? And that included support staff. So, I spent a lot of time with, Gene Frederick and Brent Gove and, some of the really great folks like Sherry Johnson, who was one of the coaches there. And I don't know if God, no, it's Jesse's Zavorsky. Is that how you say his last name? Zagorski?
Very well, down in San Diego.
Gosh, by the way, if you guys have not read the book GoPro, that may be the number one takeaway from Maui for me, is I got to spend a long time with Jesse. Now, what I don't get, Frank, and you can educate me on this, is I'll go ahead and I'll go through some of the things that were most impactful for me in Maui. But what blows me away is I have a decent sized team now here at EXP. And a handful of them complain that they don't have business. Here we are at this event, and I don't know if you guys know Jesse, but Jesse's recruited Tristan, who runs Lab Coat Agents on Facebook, right? One of the largest real estate agent networks there is in the United States. And then he also recruited Krista Mayshore. They're both famous, right? And so Jesse is an absolute rock star. We were there Tuesday afternoon or Wednesday, one of the days, whatever it was, the next morning at 10 a.m. Before we started, he said, listen, if you want to come, I'm running a 1-hour program where I'm going to really talk about my recruiting secrets. Feel free to show up. I'm going to have my entire group. I'm going to give away all the secrets. I got nothing to hide. We're all shareholders. And of course, I'm not going to pass that up. So I'm there at 10 a.m. the next day. There was a total of 3 people there at the beginning out of the 55. And I was the only one there at the end. Once we were done, Jesse spent the next hour with me. I mean, that was worth the trip itself, right?
Yeah.
In the next hour. So GoPro is a book that I highly recommend. What I'll do too is there was so many great speakers. Brent spoke and he closed it out. He's amazing. He spoke every day. We had some top producers from Hawaii. I mean, we were in Maui. We had Sherry Johnson, who's going to be on Atomic Habits tomorrow. Sherry was there. She was outstanding. She talked about the golden pipeline. And I would say what I learned there, and I'll share a couple of the things from Gene, which I think were really impactful for, am I mainly talking to EXP folks?
No, you're talking to everybody.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So as much as we both love EXP,
yeah,
I like to keep this kind of agent agnostic and be very generic.
Perfect. What I took away, there was a guy named Carlos that I sat with the entire time, and we took diligent notes. So I'll share a little bit of screen, but I'll talk about, there was 4 things that he and I identified as the rock stars there. So we had folks that presented that were absolutely blowing everyone away. They were crushing everyone in production. Number one, they had a really good job being done with their sphere of influence.
Mm-hmm.
There was a number of folks that talked about 300 plus people that they believed were their primary customers, and they only thought of them when they thought about real estate agents, right? And they walked through that every 10 years you're going to sell. And if you have 300 people in that database that believe that you're their number one agent and they sell every 10 years, that's 30 deals a year. Most people would be extremely happy with that.
Oh yeah.
Right. And if you think about it, the math absolutely works. And then they said those people are probably not going homeless, right? So if they sell, they got to buy something probably, and vice versa, right? If they're buying, they're selling something. So if you're not getting 45 to 60 deals a year out of your sphere, which again, I looked at my Facebook, right? I got like 2,000 and something friends. Obviously, all of them don't think I'm their primary real estate agent because I'm not getting 60 deals from my sphere every year, right? So that was number one. And they had some really good strategies around, man, I don't care how good you are. Nobody's Tom or Mike Ferry. You're not calling your sphere every single week. Like nobody can do that. But if you really invest in it for a 13-week period where you do 2 letters of the alphabet at a time, you collect emails, phone numbers, you hook up with them on Instagram and Facebook, and you make sure you know where their primary address is. And they had a really good strategy around it, a couple of them, of adding value. Like that is the foundation of your business, and you're going to be rocking it. Then we found that people came into one or two categories in the next thing that they did. They either rocked a niche or they rocked a farm. And I will tell you, that's where I think the biggest players that were in this conference in Maui were. So when they brought in the top performers that were able to speak, like there was a couple folks from Yuba City, which is a really, a really close area to here. They
Steve
were
McCarthy.
yeah, Steve. Yeah, Steve and his wife spoke, right? Steve and Kelly. So they have absolutely dominated their marketplace, right? And they get not almost every deal, but they own a large percentage of the
Yes.
market there. Their signs are up everywhere. They work very hard on their brand. They continually advertise, and you can't go into the Yuba City, Marysville area and not know who this team is and
Right.
not know what they're doing, right? I mean, that's just what they do. Then you had a secondary thing, so I would call that a farm, right? You're farming an area extremely well, or a niche, like in Hawaii and in another area in California. There were folks that were focused on veterans, and it was interesting because they said, "Hey, that is our niche, but you can pick." 55 and over, right? That's a huge community. 80% of the houses are owned by baby boomers right now. My niche, Frank, and the reason that I'm so successful is distressed property. That's
Yes.
my niche, right? And everybody can pick a niche, and people are like, oh, I don't know what to pick. Well, there's divorce, right? Out there. There's probate and trust. I mean, it's endless. There's, I don't know if you know Don Yoakum. When he started, he was the condo king. But that was number two. They had a niche and they were absolute rock stars at it. These folks happened to be military focused because people were coming in, coming out. They understood the VA loans completely. They understood how long they had to be there. They understood how they wanted to transition. They showed them the math of if they actually bought a house versus renting, they were going to do better, and they were kicking butt. So again, Sphere was number one, a farmer niche was number two. And then there was just straight up hustlers, right? And they didn't hustle for no reason. They hustled with a strategy. So they were going after canceleds, expireds, for sale by owners, anybody that was motivated to buy or sell, right? They had a very distinct strategy around landing those folks. So when we, Carlos and I, recap together at the end, he and I are just lowly players in this big game, right? And we were watching all those rock stars on stage. We saw that it was those four things that were the key takeaways on the producers, right, at the event. So that was pretty cool. Let me grab two. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in the chat box for anybody that wants it, the entire set of slides from the event, which is pretty cool. So we had a ton of great speakers. If you pull, and again, I'm not going to be able to get to all of the stuff that was happening there. But if you want to, you can pull up all the slides. You'll see that it's MauiEvent24.com. And I'll put it in the chat box right now. You're going to see a really cool, let's say that you're a broker looking to recruit or an EXP agent looking to recruit. Phil Stringer did an entire section on.
I'm familiar with him.
Yep, using AI to recruit, whether it be you're recruiting for your own brokerage or EXP or anybody else. He actually walked you through the same 25 questions, very similar to what he did when he has you set up your own business. So he was outstanding. Sherry Johnson's going to be in that link right there that I just put out there. Sherry Johnson's one of the top real estate coaches in the country. She built agencies to up over 2,000 with huge production. She talks about the golden pipeline, right? So you'll see her event playing the long game is what she called it. You had a number of really top producers that shared all of their tools. So if you need, a listing checklist, a buyer's checklist, all of that stuff, again, it's all in the Maui event. I just put it in the chat box. You can download all of that fun stuff. What I will share, and what I thought was really fun, and it makes me a little nervous now, is I was going to do Gene stuff. Do you think Gene stuff's okay to share?
I think Gene's stuff is okay to share.
All right. Give me a second here, and I will get it shared. Any questions about the event while I'm pulling this up?
How was the weather? Did it cooperate?
It did, all except for like the last day and a half. The last day and a half wasn't as great, but the rest of it was outstanding.
Good.
Yeah. All right, here we go. Let's see if I can share this and if it will actually work, because I'm not that smart at this stuff.
Chris, are you on this?
No, I think, yeah, you pulled it up.
Okay.
Record straight on something.
This is my favorite. This is Gary. Do you know Gary?
I tried to buy EXP's,
Gary who?
Keller.
whatever that is.
I don't
Can
know.
you see in here or no?
No.
I
Okay.
just want to set the record straight.
Oh, yeah.
Not in a million years.
I'll start it over real quick. This is 2019.
The people have liked to speculate that I tried to buy EXP's virtual animal farm, whatever that is. I just want to set the record straight. Not in a million years. However, I would do this. You would expect me to do this. I wanted to understand what it was.
We're getting a little lag. All right, I'll share some of the slides. So this is the Maui 24. We'll skip that one. Gene is cool because he talks about real estate and he knows real estate so well. I don't know if
Yeah.
you've ever had him walk through like the different ages and everything that has transpired over the years.
Yeah,
But
he talked about that in his napkin presentation.
Yeah, and basically that's what this is. And he tried to forecast what was happening in the future, which was pretty cool. And so the beginning of the franchise model was Caldwell Banker, August 27th, 1906, right? So over 100 years ago. And then by 1977, 5,000 brokerages had joined a franchise. And by 2010, 65% of all the transactions it had consolidated, right, had been done by the top 5. And then, franchises developed over the next 70 years. Some stayed, some faded away. He went through like some of these names you'll remember, but they're gone, and some of them are still around and still, doing relatively well. And then he went through each of the decades. So back in the 70s was the Gold Coat, and Century 21. And Frank, it was interesting because one of the biggest brokerages that just transitioned in Hawaii was still kind of far behind. They were all Century 21s, and they finally made a transition. And then 1980s was Remax, and 1990s was Cendant, and then in the 2000s was Keller Williams. Right. And then he transitioned into 2009 with a new disruptive model. And of course, Gene, he popped himself in there in 2015. And in 2015, at the end, EXP had 864 agents, right? But they had got some really key folks, and the stock was trading at 18 cents a share. I should have quit all of my corporate jobs in 2015 and jumped into EXP at that point, but I did not. What he said the 3 big innovations were for our platform, which I think he was right. And now you'll see, right? There's LPT out there. There's Real. There's Epic. I've interviewed with all of them. And they're all really neat concepts, and they're based on what we've done. And they've taken these same things, right? The cloud-based platform, the revenue share to agents, and the stock to agents. At the end of 2016, we'd almost tripled in size, right? We had an interesting gentleman named Brent Gove that joined the organization. And at that time, we had 2401, again, just about tripled in size from the year before. And then the next year, they have some funny videos that we'll skip here. If you don't know these folks, they're hilarious. And Gene did a good job. At the end of 2017, 6,507 agents. Some other names that I know you know on there, Frank. And what's cool is, again, I'm not trying to sell EXP, but what I really love about this company is Jay Kinder, the guy that's the first name on there. He even though he's a young man, he's younger than me. He's mentored me a couple times and set me straight on the right path. I was in production and I read Gary Keller's Millionaire Real Estate Agent book. And if you read that book very carefully, it says hire an assistant first, which I did, and then start hiring buyer's agents. And what Jay Kinder told me a couple of years ago was, Russell, I've tried that model. And what I found out that worked better was you want to hire 3 assistants before you hire your first buyer's agent. because, you know, nobody does the same job as you. And until you can get systems and processes in place, it's better to have more help and handle all of the key stuff yourself.
Yeah.
So Jay was amazing. And then this last year I went to him again because I had built quite a wide organization and not very deep. And he's like, you know, now what you need to do is really start to nurture your leaders. So he has no financial incentive to help me, but he's been an absolute gold mine for me in helping me build here at EXP. 2018 doubled again, 15,000, 551 agents, bunch of other really cool stuff. We got uplisted to the NASDAQ stock exchange. So the stock was no longer trading at 18 cents. 2019, everybody says, the company's getting lucky. 25,348 agents. From 2020 to 2023, we went from 25,000 agents to 90,000 agents, which is absolutely crazy. And then, of course, bunch of copycats out there is the ones I just listed, right? LPT, Epic, Real. I'm sure, Frank, that you know all of those. What Gene has predicted is as we have the next, boom in real estate from 24 to 27, we're going to go from 90,000 to 200,000 agents here at EXP. And one of the things that he said is, Uber came out, right? And then you saw a bunch of copycats. And right now it looks like there's two, but Uber's still the big dog on the block. Same thing with Airbnb, right? Airbnb came out and a whole bunch of other ones came out, but eventually Airbnb is still the big dog on the block. So he also says he thinks from 2027 to 2031, we're going to go from 200,000 to 500,000 agents. And again, Gene's been right a lot. Oh, this is more stuff about himself. I thought he had one more this was the slide that blew me away, Frank.
Yeah, I've seen this.
Yeah. I posted this. I took a picture of it and posted it right away. So in the last 5 years, and of course, Compass didn't start publicly traded until, 2020 or something like that, 2021, so 3.5 years. But if you invested $1 million either 5 years ago or when the stock launched in any of these companies, now anywhere, it used to be Realty, right? It's Coldwell Banker and all those guys. You would have 422,000, so you'd have lost 60% of your investment. You'd have lost over 70% with Remax, over 80% with Compass, and you would have done more than doubled your money with EXP. So it was a really cool conference. Lots of great speakers. Again, I could share all of the QR codes, but I have already. That's why I shared the Maui event link. And again, all you got to do is click on the Maui event link and it takes you right to all of the different presentations that were done. I highly recommend that you go look at Justice. She was amazing. I highly recommend that you go look at Phil Stringer. Phil was amazing. So those guys were two of the better ones that I liked.
Yeah. Just a side note, I'm number 2204 in EXP.
You were the 22nd hundred agent here?
Yeah.
How cool is that?
Yeah. So it's definitely been a whirlwind, but nonetheless, right now, Russell, the reason I have you on here is to educate and help people, do more business. And you definitely give some great tips on what's coming up in the future and how to do this. But I know deep in my heart that everything is moving toward AI, EXP, and it's not just EXP, it's all the companies that we're in competition with. They're all moving to AI. They're outsourcing, they're downsizing the offices. People that work in offices, I'm telling you, the judgment day is coming. It is, because they're going to require more commission, more of your fees. And I think EXP was 6-7 years ahead of their time, especially when COVID hit, because they didn't lose anything.
No, we gained.
They didn't lose anything.
No, I think that was actually a blessing for us. People realized they didn't need an office.
Right.
They did.
And I know I've lost people that if I don't have an office, well, I'm not coming to EXP. Well, EXP is not for everybody. I get it.
Well, and you get an office with Regis if you really need to meet somebody somewhere.
I know. But most of the time I meet people at Pete's or Starbucks or at their homes.
Yeah. And
that's kind of what we do. So in the closing minutes that we have, Russell, I'm going to jump on that call tomorrow with Phil Stringer. That has piqued my interest big time.
Yeah.
Kind of summarize this.
Yeah.
And put a bow on it and let's wrap it up.
Yeah. I'll do two things, especially since everybody's trying to be more productive. And I promise I'm not trying to plug myself or my products. Number one, you are so right. I'm reading a book right now, and over 100 years ago, 90% of the workforce was in agriculture over 100 years ago. Today, it's less than 1%, right? And it's because of technology. The small farmer is gone, right? And technology essentially has taken over everything.
Wow.
It's this, yeah, crazy, right? Crazy statistic. And if you look, tons of jobs are going away. And they're going away because of technology. AI, like right now, I used to have to pay an editor to do all of my video stuff, and AI will do almost all of it on its own. It'll write my script, it'll tell me what to publish. And if you have the right programs, it'll actually do 90% of the editing for you and pull the right stuff out. It's crazy, right? So I 100% agree with you on that. And then I guess I would be remiss if I was on a call and I didn't share my secret weapon. So I use a platform called USA Home Bids. I do free calls every other Thursday. I put my money where my mouth is. So next Thursday, the 22nd, I believe at 2 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, I call and I get listing appointments for other people, right? And I try to give back a bit on what has made me so successful. It is a fantastic new technology. It's one step ahead of the NAR lawsuits. I've been teaching it for about 4 years now, and it's probably 30 to 40% of my productivity. And as you know, I do a lot of business.
Yes, I know you do, because I see it on your Facebook and you're very successful with what you do. And that's really why I wanted to have you on, because obviously I don't want to talk to people who's not doing any production. I want to let everybody know there are still deals out there that are going to be done with or without you. And we're just trying to give you guys the edge on what to do. So, Russell, I want to thank you for being on this today. Anything that you ever need, call. I love you, dude. You've got my respect. You're a great guy, and you're humble, and that's what I like.
Man, reciprocal is true. And I'll tell people, take action. Like, don't keep hoping it's going to happen, right? It's not going to happen if you do the same stuff you did yesterday. Take massive action. Do something different. Hey, how come you have so many team leaders in your downline? Because if you look at my book, I freaking call team leader after team leader after team leader after team leader, right? How do you have so much real estate business? Because I pick up the damn phone and I call and I call and I call and I call. If people come into my office, I have an office where I let people come in for free. It's me every day that I'm in town. And then every once in a while, somebody pops in. I've got 30 people in this area. It's not a secret. Like, take massive action. Pick up the phone. Go. I mean, done is better than perfect. Do your videos. Like, just go do it. Don't quit standing around. Like, I'm sure you've been to so many trainings where they say, you know, call your sphere. Well, you're not calling your sphere. I promise, if you pick up the phone and talk to friends and family that you know for 2 hours a day, you don't even have to mention real estate. Business will come. They know what business you're in, but you're not doing it, right? Like, the perfect example is when Jesse says, come in and watch me do my thing. There's 3 of us there out of 55, and I'm the only one that stayed. Like, if you treat this like a business and you take massive action, it will change your life, Frank. That's what I will tell you.
Russell, that's exactly what I wanted you to say. Your last 30 seconds, you killed it. Thank you so much. All right, Russell, have a great day. And Chris is going to send you this video. You can put it on your social media, YouTube, whatever you want. And it's just always a pleasure to talk to you, Russell. You fire me up every time I see you.
Good to talk to you too. Thank you so much for the opportunity, Frank.
Okay, thanks,
Bye, Chris.
everybody. Have a
Chris.
great day. We'll see you here next Tuesday on Tech Tuesdays at 8 a.m.